Hi there, I'm Zhen and welcome to the first episode of Zhen Writes podcast. On today's episode, I will be speaking to fellow indie filmmakers Val and Sharvin to talk about their latest short film, which is called Happy Hour, a Spirit Walker story. It's a horror and supernatural short film of their very own Spirit Walker universe. This is their third entry. And before that, I will be speaking to you about several favorite indie short films of mine. Now let's get to it. Thank you for tuning in and don't stop watching movies. Diary of the Wolf by Monish Rajakumaran is about James, a hitman new to the job, questions his inner demons in a deadly game of cat and mouse. I reckon that this is Monish's best work. His writing builds up the suspense very well and it doesn't rush the pace of the short film. You should give this a watch on the Fillmmaker's YouTube channel. Samsara by Sharvin Vishal is loosely adapted from the short story The Egg by Andy Weir. It's a man's experience with the afterlife upon his death. This short is one of the ideal examples of how budding filmmakers can try blending both phone and DSLR cameras to produce quality like Samsara. Since then, he has inspired me as well to maximize my phone's camera. Contract Kill is a 3-part neo-noir web series created by Val. It follows the story of a hitman, and I applaud Val for his undying energy in reviving this project as it was shelved for 2 years due to some difficulties in post-production. He is the writer, director, editor, sound designer, and the leading star. It's important that the industry look to more indie filmmakers as they are filled with energy and passion. Now that the censorship board has updated its guidelines, however, there is backlash that is curbing the freedom of expression among indie filmmakers. The prosecution of the filmmakers behind Mentega Terbang would only cause more fear and diminish the passions among indie filmmakers. This would prevent them from producing short films, quality projects in our home soil, which is Malaysia. Now we discuss the makings of Happy Hour, a Spirit Walker story with writer and director Val, director of photography Sharvin. Thank you, Val and Sharvin, for joining us today. So Val, what is the third Spirit Walker entry? So I remember it's called Happy Hour, a Spirit Walker story, right? So what is it about?
Happy Hour Spirit Walker story is we find the character, the Spirit Walker Kala, in a bar basically, and he encounters an entity, a spirit, and the spirit has a very particular issue and it's coming to him for help because he's one of the only people that could see this entity and interact with it. So we pick up the story from that juncture.
It just reminds me of like the Sixth Sense, the kid. I can see dead people.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Okay, now we move on to the prep process. So I want to find out, since it's the third one already within the Spirit Walker universe, shall I say universe?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
So I like to ask the writer and director Val, what attempts were made to make it different from the previous ones?
What attempts were made? Well, the first Spirit Walker we see is very atmospheric. It's more towards the imagery and there's a narration going over it. Sort of a taster for people if you're entering into the universe. Spirit Walker 2 was we're putting the character in a situation and it becomes more dialogue driven. However, when it becomes more dialogue driven, personally I feel with Spirit Walker 2 is it kind of lost some of the experimental imagery and quality. It became more standardized, basic, your basic wides and reverse shot when it comes to characters talking. So with Spirit Walker 3, I wanted to take what worked in 2 and in 1 and leave out the rest that didn't work for me. So one of the things I want to take was the more experimental imagery and editing techniques, as well as good strong dialogue. Because I think that with both of them coupled together, there's something very interesting there. And also I would say this Spirit Walker maybe is more I would say character driven. Is much more character driven. It's not really about the ghost or the entity or the horror. That's more of a backdrop for a more human drama between two characters, and I think that's what makes it ultimately more different.
I'd like to open the floor to Sharvin. This is your third also credit as the DP of Spirit Walker. So what?
That's right.
So in terms of like photographing and lighting the film, what attempts were you made to make it different?
Back in the day, when we first released the first Spirit Walker, right? Our equipments were basically just my phone, the Samsung mid-range phone, and then I think 2 torchlights, right, Vale? 2 or 3?
Two or three. Yeah.
2 or 3 torchlights, and then I think that's pretty much it in terms of equipments, right? So the second one also was quite similar in terms of equipments and all that. And then the third one now, it's the first time in the Spirit Walker entries, right? Where we used actual lighting equipment. So we used an actual camera this time. So and then we used an iPhone also lah. So this time we used like 3 cameras. So that was different in terms of like behind the scenes stuff and all that.
I see.
Yeah.
So what was the decision to like leap from like smartphones and like just minimal amount of equipment now that you want to use cameras and also lighting equipment? What was behind that decision?
So with the second one, we noticed some issues here and there, some limitations that the phone had, when shooting in low light, for example, and all that. So for this one, since we had enough lighting and all that, you can see the difference when it comes to phones and cameras, right? Cameras, they tend to look they tend to look better, and they have like better depth of field and all that. So that is why we decided to use cameras for this time.
Wow, that's really nice. Now, since you mentioned all those techniques and also the creative decisions to lead up to the final result, so like Val, I want to ask you, what's your approach to like making horror genres?
I'm a huge fan of horror, but the thing is, I don't like the jump scary horror. I want to make people feel the atmosphere. For me, horror lies in the atmosphere. It lies in your framing. It lies in your sound design, and by sound design, I don't mean just you blare the noise suddenly and you scare people. And it also lies in, of course, the performances. So sometimes, like for either any entity or person that's acting, I give them very strict instructions. Like in the first Spirit Walker, the actress name is Victoria. Victoria acted as a spirit, right? And the direction I told her is be still, don't move, don't sway about, stay as still as you can, move very little, and when you move, try to isolate a limb. So like if you're moving your head, it's just your head, it's not your whole body moving, right? So it's stuff like that for me, I want to creep people out. I don't want to just because that's easy, and I think that's kind of cheap and it's insulting to the audience in a way.
Wow, very subtle and also non-verbal cues.
Yeah.
And also I really appreciate the ambience that you guys are building up throughout the universe. I'd like to point this out to Val. So what is the uniqueness of this third entry from the previous ones? What is your uniqueness?
Alright. So unique selling point.
Unique selling point.
Hey. Okay. This third one, I go back to that root of who is this guy? Why is he the way that he is? What is his mindset like? And again, I don't like answering things for people. I don't like just giving you the answer because that's too easy in my opinion. Again, I like to just give clues for people. And I hope that while watching this, people, they're like, who is this guy? Why is he the way that he is? What's going on in his head? And I think that is its unique selling point, is the fact that it is an exploration of this man in a universe where there's monsters, there's ghosts, there's demons. It sort of treats these extraordinary things as, I wouldn't say ordinary, but almost expected for this universe.
In terms of location and all that, we had more control. Even though there were a lot of like shots on the shot list and all that, there was still enough room for us to like experiment with things and all that. I will say that's why when you eventually get to watch the movie, right? The film, the shots in this one is a bit more dynamic, I would say, compared to the second one.
Honestly, it has been a very fun and insightful discussion to have you guys on board right here to share what it's like to make something of the horror slash supernatural genre. I'd love to have more of the crew members joining us today, but unfortunately, time does not permit us. So, thank you so much, Val and Sharvin, for joining us today for the key
Thank you for having
insights.
us, man.
I'm glad to be
Alright,
here.
so Happy Hour Spirit Walker story is out now on YouTube on Kino Val channel. Alright, thank you guys for watching and see y'all. Bye.
Right, see ya.
Thanks.